Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today I am coming to you all with a review for In the Heights, directed by Jon M and starring Anthony Ramos, Corey Hawkins, Leslie Grace, and Melissa Barrera. Shout out to my girl, Struggle Reviewz TV, for the peer pressure and for bullying me into this review. I'm just playing. But I do appreciate you being so patient and actually even being willing to request this and hear my thoughts, because I promise you, I was not planning on doing a review for this. I just figured, I'm too late, or, it's whatever. But no, I appreciate you being willing to push me to do this. So here's your review. So story-wise, this is based on the original musical created by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which was first presented in 2005 and premiered on Broadway in 2008. And here we follow the story of Usnavi, a young bodega owner who, like many of those in his community of Washington Heights, continues to work and save every penny daily as he imagines, sings, and dreams of one day reaching a better life. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the pros. This was a huge surprise for me. So just to give a little background, I had no experience with In the Heights. I didn't realize it was a musical on stage. It just so happened that the day after New Year's, my friend Lauren and we went to go see Cats, which was absolutely a favor because, that was quite the experience, but I digress. While we were waiting for the film to come on, the trailer for In the Heights came on, and she got so excited, and I was just like, oh, okay. I had no idea what it was, and I didn't understand the story. I didn't know anything about it. So she basically filled me in after the trailer went off, and she told me about the original musical. She told me about Lin-Manuel Miranda and just how excited she was for it. And so once she explained it to me, I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I still was kind of on going to see it because I am definitely a musical person, but some musicals hit where they're supposed to for me and I have an awesome time, and other ones are like, ugh, okay, this didn't work for me. And that's because for me, musicals work based off of three components. That is setting, that is story, and that is music. Take, for example, The Phantom of the Opera. That's probably one of my favorite musicals of all time. Setting, Paris, 1881, Paris Opera House, check. Story, an opera ghost wreaks havoc as his obsession with the young ingenue grows stronger. Check. Music, operatic with some rock and roll inflections. Check. So it checked all the boxes for me. I love that musical and I really enjoyed it. But for In the Heights, it was like setting, Washington Heights. Okay, check. Story, I have no idea. Music, outside of In the Heights, no idea. And because I didn't know what I was getting going into it, I was kind of unsure about actually taking the time to go and watch it. But then of course, we know our situation, the big ponderosa happened, and this got pushed. So then, fast forward to June 2021, In the Heights is released officially in theaters and on HBO Max. And what was so great about finally getting to see this, my friend Lauren, of course, suggested that we all go and see it. And that was really significant because it was our first time being together, absolutely the first time being in a theater. And so being able to have that experience together in the theater, watching this film after maybe a year of not being able to be around each other and really, talk face to face and interact that way, there are no words for it, but it really was an awesome experience. It just was so transcendent and I was so into it, and I'm so glad that I was able to share that experience with them because it came together perfectly. Many of you may already be familiar with Jon M because he directed the film Crazy Rich Asians, and if you saw that film, then you already know that Jon M is no stranger to spectacle and over-the-top visuals and bold in-your-face production aesthetics and design and all of that. And even with the different perspective, I still saw a lot of that in this film. And that was something else that kind of put me off of going to see it because, of course, you think of musicals like Chicago and Moulin Rouge and Dreamgirls, and they're very visual, very colorful, very stylized, very in your face. So it definitely helps immerse you in the experience and the story and the characters and everything else that's going on. But then in contrast, In the Heights is telling a very specific story about a very specific neighborhood, and it's very realistic. It is concrete blocks, it is apartments and bricks. It's a very grounded focus. And based off of that, I was wondering, is this still going to feel like a musical? And I have to say it absolutely did. And I also thought the inclusion of some of the digital effects were really cool, like at the beginning of 96,000. And we see some of the chalk drawings as they're describing some of the lyrics. And then, of course, when Vanessa is singing It Won't Be Long Now, and she's running through the streets, and you see all the colorful fabric coming down off of the buildings and through the streets. And I thought that was cool. I think it added just a little extra pop into those scenes. So we had something that kind of was drawing our eye as we were enjoying the music. And just in general, I loved how they showcased the community. So many of the scenes, especially the musical numbers, I felt so much of the energy and the passion and just the vibrancy of the community, the spirit of the community, of the culture, of the people. And then also the themes of unity and togetherness and just this tight-knit community, that absolutely resonated with me. I really, really enjoyed that. Song-wise, I pretty much enjoyed all of the songs. I don't think there were any songs where I was just like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over. No, I think every song hit the way it was supposed to. I will say that I'm probably going to have to go back and give those songs a listen again because there were so many of them and it was so like one after the other. So I do want to take the time to revisit them and listen again and really let the music sink in and really see how they hold up outside of the film. But in general, I enjoyed the majority of the songs. My standouts, of course, In the Heights, that was an obvious one, but it was a really great opening number. The one that really brought me into the film, because with every musical, there's always one song that's like, okay, wait, I think I'm really in this now. For example, The Greatest Showman. When we first started, I was like, I don't know. And then when we got to Come Alive, I was like, oh, I'm sold. It's over. Come Alive was like, oh, and it's crazy because the title of that song and the lyrics, it's like, no, literally, come alive. And I felt like as an audience member, I was like, oh, this film, like the music, the cast, everything is literally coming alive. So that was the perfect number to really pull me into it. And from that moment on, like I was sold. I was in it. And that number for me, even though it was a smaller number, No Me Diga, tell me something I don't know. Yeah, No Me Diga was such a fun number and it was so quirky and so funny. And even the visual of the wig mannequins and everyone gossiping, like I enjoyed that so much. So for this musical, that was the number that made me say, okay, I can dig it, I'm in it, I can't wait to see what happens next. And then, of course, 96,000 brought it home. I think that is probably the big showstopper of the film. And then I also enjoyed Carnival de Barrio. And yeah, just in general, the music really hit the way it was supposed to. Like I said, I'm going to have to go and revisit, but generally, really, really enjoyed the music. And also, let's talk about that choreography. Oh my goodness. I have to say, although there was so much about this I enjoyed, I think what really made it worth going to see it at the theater was the choreography and the dance sequences and the moves. Like, that's what really made this feel like I was really like in a live theater almost, really like watching a whole spectacle, a whole production. Like the vibe and the whole moment, that's what really like pulled me in. And my friends were right next to me and we were like shaking our shoulders and like we were into it. I promise you, if there weren't any other people in the theater, we might have all gotten up and danced. I know I would have. So I was just like, okay, hey. Like, they killed the choreography. It was so, so great. And then overall, I enjoyed the cast. I enjoyed pretty much everyone who was in this film. And I love the fact that we had so many relative newcomers. I was familiar with Anthony Ramos, Corey Hawkins, Dasha Polanco, and Jimmy Smits, but everyone else, this was my introduction to them. And I think everyone, just as an entire cast, everyone really added something to this. Everyone felt like they were necessary and that they were bringing something that was special to this. My introduction to Anthony Ramos was She's Gotta Have It. I had no idea that he was in Hamilton. So seeing him in She's Gotta Have It, and then seeing him in A Star Is Born, then finding out about Hamilton, and now seeing him in this film, it's just like, man, he's so, so talented. I'm really excited to see like where he's gonna go from here because he is absolutely making an impact in the industry right now. And then Corey Hawkins, of course, I was already familiar with him because of Straight Outta Compton, where he portrayed Dr. Dre. And it was really something seeing him portraying this hardcore rapper and actually rapping in that film, then jumping over to this film where he is just like singing down. And I had no idea he had all this theater experience and he graduated from Juilliard. Had no idea. So the fact that he was in this and he was just like singing, like bringing it, I enjoyed that so much. I also really enjoyed Leslie Grace as Nina. I enjoyed her singing. I enjoyed her as a character, and her story arc really worked for me, and that absolutely resonated also. I really felt her struggle, I felt her conflict, and that was something I really appreciated, and seeing more of her as we went on throughout the film. And then, of course, Melissa Barrera as Vanessa. I thought she did a really solid job also. I enjoyed what she brought to this as well. So now I'm going to jump over to the cons. Not a lot of cons here, honestly, but definitely a few worth commenting on. I have to say there wasn't quite enough character development and story development here. I know that there is so much to juggle in this film. Story and songs and characters and there's a lot that's being juggled in this film. So I understand it's difficult to make time for everything. But I think with the consistency of the musical numbers, I think I needed more time to just kind of slow down and see the characters really interact with each other and have that time, and then jump back into the music, into the flow of everything. I just think because everything was so we didn't get a chance to really kind of slow it down and see the characters really interacting with each other in their community and just kind of having their experiences in a very grounded one-on-one type of way. I also wish we had gotten more Benny and Nina, and I discovered that there's a whole story arc with Benny and Nina's father that happens in the original musical that we don't get here, because it really would have been interesting to see that dynamic and how they would have handled that here, but alas, not enough time. I would say I'm a little divided on the length of this. Ultimately, I love long movies, and I was not bored by this by any means. I was not looking at my phone okay, what time is it? Is this almost over? No, I was very much invested the entire time. That being said, there was a point in the back of my mind where I could feel the stretch happening at a certain point in the film. And what I call the stretch is basically a point in a film, usually longer films, but also sometimes shorter films too. But there's just a point pacing wise or story wise where I can feel okay, we are about to start winding down, or normally we should be winding down about this point, but no, we are full steam ahead. It's not always a bad thing, and I think it also depends on the film you're watching. And I think in this case, it's difficult because it's very hard to adapt a 3-hour musical for the screen and still manage to take the time and incorporate everything into it that needs to be there. So for me, I see both sides of it. And I could possibly see where it could have been trimmed out just a little bit. It didn't sour the experience for me, but it was something that I was aware of. Lastly, let me just go ahead and say that if you are not trying to hear anything regarding the Afro-Latina, Afro-Latino, Latinx controversy over this film, then you can go ahead and tap that way. Or you can just click on the timestamp for the final grade in my description box below. And if that's you, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the opportunity to do that right now. Going once, going twice, gone. So some of you may already know this about me, and some of you may not. I have absolutely zero patience for colorism and whitewashing. I'm not here for it. I will never be here for it. And if I see it and it's significant enough, I will absolutely call it out. Do I think that it's always intentional? No. Do I think there are times that it is? Absolutely. And even when it's not directly intentional, a lot of that still comes down to unconscious bias. And I've previously discussed this in my review of the series Them and the film Sylvie's Love. There is this default skin tone that many people think of that comes to mind, and it is not just in the Black community. That is a global issue. That is across nationalities, across ethnicities, and more often than not, darker skin is either not represented or is not thought of at all in regards to representation. As far as Lin-Manuel Miranda, I can acknowledge that I can see where he has really brought diversity in his projects, especially Hamilton. And I also have to recognize that he did take the initiative to apologize about this and just acknowledge hey, I can see where we could have done better. And to me, it's very simple and straightforward. It's not my apology to accept, but the fact that he was willing to do that, cool. Now, as far as Jon M. What I will say is that Jon M. previously directed the 2015 film Jem and the Holograms, based on the animated musical series from the 80s. In that series, there's a character known as Shayna, who is explicitly dark-skinned with hair that is purple, but very much kinky textured. So there's no doubt that Shayna is black. And the actress cast for that role was Aurora Perrineau, who is biracial, who is fair-skinned, with straight hair. Yes, to portray Shayna. So there's that. Then Crazy Rich Asians. And once again, we're casting mainly fair-skinned Asians, some even biracial, and the few brown-skinned characters we have in the film are portrayed in a very stereotypical manner. And now we have In the Heights. I don't know Jon M personally. I don't know his day-to-day process as a director, and I can't jump into his mind and see how that works. So I won't attempt to make any assumptions here. What I will say is that this is the third time you've been in a situation that seems to center itself around colorism and or whitewashing. Something about your involvement seems to suggest a pattern, and it's not a very good one. And let me be very clear, it is not up to any one person to represent all Afro-Latinos or Afro-Latinas. And I would never put that on one person. And I do understand that the Latinx community is comprised of all shades and all different kinds of people. So I'm not even suggesting that it should only look one way. What I am saying is that there is one way it always looks. And I am simply acknowledging that it is important to showcase all those shades. Are you always going to do it? Do you have to do it in every film? No. But for it to never be in these films, that's sort of a problem. And I just hope we get to the point where we can truly assess that as an unconscious issue and really bring that forward and make some strides and progress as far as representation and diversity when it comes to Afro-Latinos and Afro-Latinas. And let me also say that ultimately, this didn't ruin the film for me. The film didn't suddenly become trash because of that aspect. I saw it, I enjoyed it, I had a blast, I had an awesome time. But that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy something and also acknowledge some things about it that I didn't like. It doesn't mean that it's exempt from criticism. And as an emerging film critic, as I always say each video, I am literally assessing what is good and bad in every movie. So of course, I'm going to acknowledge aspects of it that I didn't enjoy. It may seem like it has nothing to do with the film, but it very much does, especially if you are going to make a film that is speaking about a very specific community and a very real community right here in the United States. Now, I will say throughout the movie, we do see people with darker skin tones, so it's not like the film is completely devoid of that. But as far as more prominent roles, speaking roles at the forefront, not so much. And I don't even have an issue if people don't want to acknowledge that, because ultimately you had a good time, you enjoyed it, and you spoke on that, and you really wanted to make that known, then cool. I'm not looking at anyone sideways because they chose not to speak on that, because if you enjoyed it, you enjoyed it. But let me also be very, very clear about something. Being vocal enough to dismiss something that in no way affects you is extremely bizarre to me. If you are a person who has had some kind of adverse reaction or is offended by that kind of representation being asked for, maybe you should take some time out to figure out why that is. I keep seeing this term forced diversity, and I think that is so hilarious because once upon a time, forced diversity looked like Laurence Olivier in Othello. Forced diversity looked like Katharine Hepburn in Dragon Seed. Forced diversity looked like Rock Hudson in Winchester 73. So if we're going to talk about forced diversity, let's talk about the history on which forced diversity is founded upon, shall we? So when it comes down to darker skinned people not wanting to be erased from the narrative and wanting to be represented in media, if you have a beef with that, I suggest you grill it up and eat it. Because ultimately, this isn't about you. This is about those people feeling marginalized and underrepresented. And their feelings are valid. And they don't have to just shut up because you want to enjoy your movie and feel like those people shouldn't say anything and shouldn't ruin it. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And I think the response to that is very simple. Acknowledge it, understand it, and move on. And on that note, I too am now going to move on. So I'm gonna go ahead and give In the Heights a B+. This was a blast. I really enjoyed it. It was a vibe. It was a moment. It was an experience. And I think as far as the theater is concerned, absolutely brought it home for me. And although there were some cracks in the foundation, it did not take away from my experience. It didn't detract from anything. I had a great time. And it actually made me want to go back and watch the original musical because I would really love to see some of the songs that were left out and how all that works in the time frame that is actually given in the original story, in the original musical. I would absolutely love to see that. So this is something that I really appreciated. And as a musical fan, it definitely reminded me how much I appreciated that as a medium. It reminded me of why I love live theater and live musicals on the stage. And it reminded me of why I love movie musicals and that experience also. It really revs you up and it's such an adrenaline rush. And it's something that just really like pulls you in. And even the escapism is something different from just watching explosions or just action sequences, but music and choreography and just, I don't know, that medium just hits different for me. And it's something I've appreciated for a long time. And so being able to see that and also see the representation, flawed or not, I still appreciated the vision for this. And it's something I really appreciated being able to see, especially with my friends. So shout out to Preston, Lauren, and Abby. I had a great time, and especially shout out to Lauren for putting me onto this in the first place. I had a great time with you guys. So appreciative, and can't wait till we go see the next one. In the Heights is currently playing in theaters and also streaming on HBO Max. You guys feel free to check it out, leave your thoughts below, and let me know what you think. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movie.